Ever since Sikh scholar and author of the Sikh Encyclopedia, Bhaikan Singh Nabha, alerted the Sikh world to the issue of errors within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji in 1918. Sikh intellectuals, thinkers, writers, academics and researchers have raised the issue continuously. They called for the Sikh world to do something about it. These calls were so passionate that even groups that are considered antitheses to intellectualism, namely Deras and Taksals, have come on board. For instance, Gurbachan Singh Pindran, the head of Dera Mehta, published a book on the matter. Former Akal Takht Jathedar Ranjit Singh said in a recorded sermon that the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji that we have today contains thousands of errors. Another Akal Takht Jathedar and student of Dera Mehta, the late Joginder Singh Vedanti, created a list of 5,000 errors that he said existed within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Joginder Singh Talwada, an associate of the Akhanda Kirtani Jatha, contributed immensely towards this issue. A one-time head Granthi of Darbar Sahib, Gyani Jagtar Singh Chachak, lent his voice and expertise to bringing about awareness of the deep-seated and sensitive problem. It appeared that for once, Sikh intellectuals had managed to energize even those groups that were disagreeable and opposed to them over just about anything and everything. But despite such success, nothing was actually done about correcting the errors that existed within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Then, in early 2022, somebody actually did something. A corrected version of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji was uploaded on a website for the Sikh world to access. The aftermath of this action was unexpected, shocking even, which was that the entire community of Sikh intellectuals, academics, thinkers, writers and researchers fell silent. When the silence was occasionally broken, it was to say things like what missionary preacher Sarbjit Singh Tunda said. I agree there are errors within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, but I do not agree with what Sardar Karminder Singh has done. Karminder Singh is, of course, the owner of the Sikh Book Club, the website where the corrected version of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji was uploaded. He is also part of a group of Gurbani scholars who had come together to work on the issue. Upon his death, Jathedar Vedanti had left his entire work on Gurbani errors in the form of thumb drives to Karminder Singh's group. In reality, what was handed over by Vedanti was the collective work of 6 Gurbani experts who had worked together for 7 decades in a group called the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Study Circle. Essentially then, the work of Karminder Singh and the Sikh Book Club in coming up with a corrected version of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji was the result of cooperation amongst groups that were disagreeable and opposed to each other. One would think that this alone was an accomplishment to talk about. Yet, Sikh intellectuals have chosen to maintain their deafening silence. One regrettable outcome of this silence was that the segment of the Sikh masses who have never read the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and are guided by the emotions of unenlightenment stepped in to fill this vacuum of silence. They flooded the social media space to pour scorn on Karminder Singh and the Sikh Book Club, as well as the work that this group had done. One way of describing the situation is that the silence created by the intellectuals was shattered by the piercing cries of the unenlightened. Karminder Singh and the Sikh Book Club was accused of altering Gurbani, of editing the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and of changing Turki Bani. Some took to reminding Karminder Singh of what happened to Baba Ram Rai, the eldest son of Guru Har Rai, who was said to have been expelled from the Guru household for altering one word of Bani, according to a concocted narrative by Nirmala writer Santokh Singh in his Gur Pratap Suraj Granth. The Ram Rai reminder was perhaps in the expectation that a similar punishment should be meted out to Karminder Singh and the Sikh Book Club. The deafening silence of Sikh intellectuals and the noises made by the empty vessel portion of Sikh masses gave our Panthak Jathebandis the perfect opportunity to gather at SGPC and do what they do best: silence Sikh intellectuals, academics, thinkers, writers, and researchers. On May 3rd, the Jathedar of Akal Takht declared Karminder Singh a Tankhaiya. On the same day, the Akal Takht issued a stop work order to another Sikh intellectual, Dr. Oankar Singh of USA. And this Gurbani scholar was in the midst of producing a translation of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. What possible conclusions can one make pertaining to Sikh intellectuals then? That the primary driving force for our intellectuals, at least on the matter of errors within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, is cowardice? Or that they are driven primarily by self-preservation and self-interests? That they will fall silent when the establishment wields the sword of compliance on one of their kind? That they are vocal and brilliant at airing the problem, but silent and indifferent when it comes to actually doing something about the solution? That they drop the issue they themselves championed once the heat begins to build up? Credit must of course be given to those who did indeed speak up, not just courageously but intelligently indeed. At the time of the writing of this editorial, Radio Virsa New Zealand host Harneek Singh and his co-host Gyani Lakhbir Singh of Canada had done 6 continuous segments in which they analyzed the issue logically for their listeners. They asked of our intellectuals this question: now that someone has done something about the issue, isn't it your duty to at least examine what has been done, to see which corrective actions are acceptable and which need more deliberation? Apart from Radio Virsa, Gurbani scholar and expert Gyani Jagtar Singh Jachak wrote a book titled The Accurate Publishing of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Issues and Solutions Worthy of Discussion by the Panth. This book was published last month, and I urge every Sikh to read it so as to come out of our unenlightened state regarding the issue at hand. On page 16, Jachakji writes, "The Sikh Book Club USA has clarified repeatedly that its online published version of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is not final. Its main objective is to preserve the painstaking work of intellectuals who worked on the issue of errors within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji for the past 70 years and to invite discerning input from selected academics and intellectuals within the field. But Pyareo, such discerning input can only come about if and only if our intellectuals, thinkers, writers, academics and researchers come out of their shackles of their self-imposed silence. On page 9 of the same book, Jachakji writes, "No one individual has the authority to correct errors that are found within the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. These errors are best corrected at the Panthak level." He continues, "But here the question arises that if our primary Panthak organization, the SGPC, has for the past 70 years been sweeping this critical issue under the carpet because they were busy serving as henchmen to politicians, then what way is there for faithful Sikhs and intellectual Sikhs who possess an understanding of Gurbani?" So, Pyareo, if our primary Panthak organization appears crippled, and if Sikhs who possess an understanding of Gurbani continue to take the path taken by the Sikh Book Club, and if our Jathedars continue to declare such Sikhs as Tarkhayas, and our intellectuals continue to display the character displayed thus far, the only question that remains is there any hope at all in resolving this problem?